Good evening. My name is Gopu. I'd like to welcome all of you to this month's program of Tamil Parvali. Our presenter lecturer this month is Mr. Jinan. When Professor Swaminathan first told me about him, I was under the impression that Mr. Jinan was a terracotta artist, former graduate of the National Institute of Design, who had gone to a small village called Arwakot near Thrissur, and he had helped sort of rescue villagers who had fallen on bad times because the profession of pottery, terracotta had lost its market demand and so forth. And when I talked, and then from his website and from other information, I understood that Mr. Jinan is a slightly more multifaceted personality, that he was into something called natural biological learning. Whatever that was. And when I talked to Mr. Jinan, and I was trying to get information from him on how he helped the people, he flipped the whole thing around. He said, no, I was disappointed in my education, so I went to this village to learn from those people. And that was my salvation. So kind of eye-opening perspective. And I would like to I think a very brief introduction is all that's required, because I think he's going to be educating us about education. So I think it's going to be a very interesting experience to all of us. So without much further ado, I present Mr. Jinan.
So, actually I began my journey when I was thrown out from college. I did engineering. For first 3 years I spent time drinking, smoking, grass, and thank God I was thrown out in third year. And I began to really wonder that why do we do these things? Because I find that many of my friends are doing that. And I know many friends who turn mad, who have, things like that. And luckily for me, I was kind of began to wonder that why are we doing things? And I realized that in modernity, most of us are doing things that we don't like to do. And education is exactly the same. Most children don't like to go to school. And I have actually redefined this whole idea of child labor from that point of view. Child labor is school. That is what children hate doing. So that's another thing. And what happened with me was that when I was thrown out, I had enough time. 1 year I stayed on my own. And I had time to explore, to see myself. Because till that time I was part of the crowd. I was doing what the crowd wanted me to do. And luckily when I was thrown out and I began to stay alone, I actually also cut off many of my friends. I began this journey of what really is happening to me. And it took me directly to the childhood. I realized that from childhood that we are being conditioned. There is nothing called choice, there is nothing called interest, things like that. So next year in 83, 82, around that time, I joined that school, primary school, to be with children, to see how children are being taught. So I spent a year there. Then I went back to engineering, took the degree, but I decided not to work. One decision I took was that I will do only things that I like to do. And 95 job was out, and machines I hated, that smell of machine, factory, all that I just didn't like in the engineering departments. So the next 2 years I roamed around pretending to look for a job, because otherwise my parents would create problem. We are from a very normal middle class family with all its needs. But somehow I was, my parents thought I'm gone now, cracked. But somewhere I knew that I'm searching, and and of course I hurt them very much because of my insistence on not working and things like that. And in the next year, After 2 years, I got into NID, National Institute of Design. And at the National Institute of Design, in the first 2 months I was very happy. I thought this is like Shantiniketan and all that, because I had heard about, Tagore and people like that. Shantiniketan. But in 2 months' time, I realized that this is far more dangerous than other normal, And I find that the more religious, the more dangerous. These days I tell that ashram schools in Orissa is better because the teachers don't go to schools. The children are left free. So their mind is not so, corrupted. What happens in this NID, I can be very specific about it, is that your very aesthetic sense is conditioned. And who you are is what your aesthetic sense is all about. It is your senses that grounds you to where you are. The food you eat. Actually, culture is very much connected to aesthetic sensibilities. And if the sense is conditioned, modernized, then you can kill a nation. And that is precisely what this country. Then after independence, see, this was actually colonized after independence, not before that. After independence, tan, man, dhan, all the 3 things. Before independence, we were not mentally colonized. We were only physically colonized. But when we began to imitate them left, right and center, that is the true colonization of the being. So this is what was happening through our institutions. Now NID, National Institute of Design, was based on Bauhaus, the German experiment in design. Exactly the same course is being applied in that institution. Now this is true of art colleges or architecture, all colleges is exactly the same thing. Because all this is based on what happened in 1920s, 30s. Whether you go to art schools, they are talking about expressionism, impressionism, various movements that happened with Picasso and people like that. And then directly, that is what our inspiration. So, and also at NID, I was finding that every NIDian is creating almost very similar thing. So this is what actually I began to explore, that what really is creativity, what is spontaneity, what is authenticity. So 3 years at NID I actually spent trying to understand these issues of aesthetic sense, how is it formed, And then by the time I completed engineering, this design, I realized that I need to work with rural tribal communities because they are not taught. They don't live in a taught, mediated learning space. They create knowledge. There is no institutional mechanism for teaching. So with that in mind, I was looking at opportunities of working with them, and then luckily I got my first invitation to Nagaland. Nagaland experience was very, very good because in Nagaland I found that I began to also question this whole paradigm of development. Again, that is another paradigm that we have completely, like schooling, another very dangerous paradigm for NGOs helping and things like that. Because I find that the Nagas were far more developed, civilized than us. Their, at least their women could run around, roam around, nobody would tell them anything. Equality of women, at all those levels, I think the tribal cultures were far more superior, and they were leading a very happy life. Today they are trying about sustainability, and we have been systematically killing sustainable, attitudes, people, and now we are talking about sustainability. When most of those cultures were utterly sustainable, they were highly civilized in their ways. So, all these points were making me to rethink on all the paradigms that we are brought up in. We are given a direction that this is the way to think. And luckily for me, various incidents were making me relook at all these mainstream paradigms of development, of education. So then, working with different tribal, rural tribal communities in various places, Nagaland, Bengal, Orissa. And Orissa experience was very, very good. I was working with the Potters community and also trying to understand how all these things happen. And naturally, our, wanting to understand, we began the process by reading several books. And I was also reading philosophy, anthropology, sociology, all kinds of books to understand what really is happening. And luckily one day, I suddenly realized that it is these books that are creating all the problems. So I stopped reading completely. For 7 years, I stopped reading completely. And I found that people had a completely different way of accessing knowledge. Because it is with the body, with the being, with senses, by doing, that people are creating knowledge. And here actually we are completely misled by the Western culture and society. Because they are defining how we should live. It's not their mistake, our mistake. We are all the time following, because you have to look today any education in this country, every subject is based on what research West has been doing. Every subject. I mean, this is the tragedy of this nation, and we call this great. I don't understand this thing. We call this nation very great, but we imitate like anything, everything. So in the rural, this is what, so that years of not reading. Also, I found that, I was also interested in spirituality, and I used to read books of Zen, all that. And I found that this is again like taking grass. That when you read Zen, then you become a Zen for some time, Zen monk. But the book is gone, you are back to the same Jinan who used the and then you shift books. Your strategy is to shift books. Then you read Sufi for some time. So you become Rumi for some time, and you're reading Rumi and And I found that this was a game that we are playing with ourselves. It's like shots. Each book, gives you this high, and once the book is gone, you're back to your same normal. And I realized that this is what probably is causing all the problem. One needs to discover all these things somewhere from within oneself. So then I went here and there, and then finally in 1993 I came to Kerala to work with the Potters community. So by then I had developed a So I'll start showing the slides also. I worked with people, and I very clearly understood that it is I who need help and not they. And we need to work out a situation where this learning is the worst, this idea is the worst. So I will just show you some experiments I did. There is a 1 year, 3-month-old child.
The idea is clear. Fine. You get the idea.
call my method do nothing training method. It means that you trust people that they are capable. It's a very simple thing. And allow things to happen. And you see, I'll just show you a small experiment. I mean, it's experiment in the sense it's not an experiment out of, I went to this village to work with them to develop products. So this is not an experiment which is funded and which is, it's a real life experiment of developing product that needs to be sold. So, two things I tell them is that you have to be the judge. You have to like what you do, and of course, two things that you judge. And of course, finally, since these products are for the market will, finally decide. So, Arukod is the village in Kerala, Nirambur, where I worked. And about 12-15 girls of various age groups, and they began to work with clay. Again, there are no rules, no tools, nothing was given to them. Everything, they have to create as they are making it. Okay, so within few days the skills, you can see the improvement in skills. Again, so just getting used to play, just understanding the material, this is what it is. And this is a very interesting thing, this circle that you see. This I invariably see that in villages when women do things, when they draw a circle, it is very perfect. And we at NIT used to spend 1 hour, 1 year, the whole 1 year. First hour was just drawing circles and straight lines. So I used to wonder where does this ability come in people, with absolutely no training. These are things that every time I went to different places, I've been noticing this kind of a thing in people. They're completely untrained, but they are doing beautiful things. So these were things that we began to do, and of course many questions that I asked, because at NID we were asking what is tradition, what is original, what is, those kind of questions used to come. And I found that none of this village has no experience of kolam, they have not seen a book, so where does this beautiful things come up, And one thing I felt is that, especially in relation to NIT and places like that, one thing I felt was that, you see, the difference we make is one is called modern, other is called tradition. That's very different. And then we also say that modern is creative and tradition is static. This is our definition, untold definition. And I realized that this is not true at all. It's exactly the opposite. I found it is the educated who are not creative, and also. I would change this actually to be real and fakes, not traditional modernity. Modernity basically, especially in our institutions, most of it is faking, cut and paste. They have this new thing called cut and paste. So that is the kind of attitude that has come. Because she has absolutely no training, she doesn't know, I don't even confuse her by calling it art or things like that. Just left alone. I purposely gave that toolkit with no tools. Usually when you go to a training place, they are giving 4 tools and that's it. So you end up all your life with that 4 tools. Here I just, it was just an empty toolkit. So everything that they felt could be used as a tool became the tool. So this kind of exploration, I'm also doing workshop, teachers in colleges. I find that students are nowhere near these people, nowhere. Where they are so regimented and controlled, So this freedom to explore, freedom without any of these ideas on art and things like that, which completely frees them to do new stuff. So this is some agarbatti stands that they make. So this was just, some of the things that I used there was because the training mode was always there because the women were hoping that I would teach them something one day, things like that. And I have seen that in real artisans communities where they are in charge, the whole mode of working is different. They are observant, their senses are awake. Whereas the moment you turn it into an expert-oriented training system, then they no longer use their brains. They want you to use it and we will just do it, that kind of a situation. So, some of the things I did was to really make them see what is around them. Just go around and, look at things around, plants, animals, those kind of things. So all these are basically from that kind of an exploration. And this was, I'll also show you we also do murals and tiles and things like that. So this came from that kind of an experiment. So this is one of the girls making of a big mural with coiling technique. Actually these are the kind of motifs that really challenges you to question what is modern. Modernity, the idea of modernity, is that in material? Is that in design? What is tradition? I think, these whole questions need to be because we all know definitions. You go to like the Vishwakarma people you met last week, you go and ask them whether they are modern or traditional. You just confuse them completely. They don't know what you're talking about. See, these are all in our mind. It is not in the minds of people who are actually doing. These are categories that we have been making. So these are all done by 12, 13, 14-year-old girls, these whole designs. And every time I meet, most educated will tell me, why don't you make mold? And this is the typical, suggestion that I get. Why don't you make a mold? See, the moment you make a mold, that creativity is finished. Otherwise, the whole beauty of craft is that each and every product can be new, can be different. It could also be similar. Like they could, just repeat any time you say, they would just repeat it. 100, 200, But, and the basic problem I find with mold is that when you use mold, you can be absent. Your presence is not required. Now these are all again done by these 12, 13-year-old girls. This is a TV did here for this Ashok Leyland, for their, one of their guest houses. Just creepers. So we also do lots of different products, functional products. These are architectural explorations. We are actually right now doing this new assembly building. We are doing some murals there also. Tidal Park, lots of murals are there. Then in many places here in Jinan. Tourism office, yes. So some of the things that I began to question. See, when I began to live in the rural areas, many assumptions got questioned. One very fundamental thing that you would be surprised is that there is no idea of boredom in rural areas. That's a modern invention, bored, to get bored, People can meet for 3 hours and absolutely no trace of boredom. And many such experiences, like hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is a very typically modern experience. So this waste was something very interesting I found. There is no notion of waste at all in rural areas. So they don't waste. And what we do is that in modern community spaces, just by keeping a waste paper basket, you've taught the child that you can waste. So actually this brings in also notion of, like today the biggest talk is about sustainability and waste. Actually, rural, this people's view, they have no idea of waste at all. Like in nature, there is no waste, nothing called waste. So everything that comes to them, there is a way to use it, Yeah, so I also have been documenting some of these small things. Like this man who is recycling broken plastics, and all the tools he uses are from so-called waste, from here and there, auto rickshaw handle, something like that. So it's all just made up. This is baskets I found in Orissa and Bihar and all that. They used to use grass to do this basket. Now they just pick up this, not like our convent schools who buy plastic and create it. Not that idea. It's actually something that we use in the real sense. So this is the cement bag. Cement bag is embroidered and made various things. Bag is actually just last month I was in Gujarat in a tribal village. I found some really amazing stuff from this. This thing is this sack. That thing is removed and made into rope with that, and different things are made with that. So this is a stitch. It's a cross stitch pattern. So this is a chatai that is made all from waste. And I continuously see this experiment happening within my village. I mean, this is seen everywhere. Any rural area, this continuous experiment is happening. Today now there is this whole idea about indigenous innovations. Everybody is talking about innovation, indigenous people. But hardly an effort to understand how it happens and how it can be retained. What we are trying to do is to bring it into our paradigm of sales. How can we patent it and sell it? There is no understanding, there is no processes to understand how to retain creativity of people. So this is happening every time. Every village you come, I can show you many innovations that we are doing. Now this is actually fascinating things with this cement sacking. Now this they use for burnishing, for baking, all kinds of things. Like this is applique, all from torn cloth. Jaru, like this you see in our houses. Our older generation have this. It's the next generation that is waste paper baskets are coming. Yeah, that's the reason. So earlier there was no waste paper basket. So everything that comes, we would think of using in some way. Some product will come out of that. Some use would be put to use. So this, like this, is my mother's work. Every time some plastic comes, she keeps, and then planting is done in that. Tire being used for drawing water, and this is how my potters grind their clay. They put it out on the road, by evening it is ground. Yeah, absolutely no energy spent from their side. I mean, road has been used all over, not this modern, not this new highways where it's so anti-people actually in that sense. But still, I think people will find some way to use it. Like in Gujarat, I found people drying their shirt on that railings that have been made to block them from coming in. So that has been used for drying cloth. So people always find interesting ways to this.
This is Russian.
So also, this is something you can read this. Actually, see, wisdom is what is gone completely. We have skills and knowledge, no wisdom. So we have become now suicidal. We are bent upon finishing off whatever is left with all the development plans and projects. So let me also share with you my experiment with children. I've been for a long time looking at how children learn, or how learning takes place, and the best people to look at to understand is children, because that is where learning begins. You know? And so this is a small experiment I did in my village called sensing nature, knowing nature. When I realized that senses is the key to knowledge. Senses is what connects you to outside and inside. And so this was a 2-month-long workshop I started doing from 2003 or something like that, with children in my village. And again, my rule is that no interference, do nothing method. Exactly the same thing, just leave them alone. Create spaces and leave them alone. No judgments and no rights and wrongs. So this began with collecting, see at NID we do this, thing called color sense. There are several, courses that so-called develop our aesthetic sense, like sense of form, sense of color, things like that. And none of it is ever used, none of it is used in a manner that you connect to the place. It's all theory driven and book driven. You sit inside the classroom, look at the color and then do it. So in this case, what I did was that I reversed the process. I asked the children to just go around and look at, color, for example, in this case, just dry leaves. So they brought them, put it together, and then I gave them primary colors. Actually, one of the things I keep telling is that underprivileged is privileged. You have another term, underprivileged. But I always find that having no money is a boon. There are several such things, it take time to understand what is all this. This is a very interesting thing that came off from this experiment. I gave them just the primary color. Reason being, I didn't have money to buy all the colors. So when I gave them primary colors, all children were able to, I found that all children were able to mix and match this color. This was a fantastic eye-opener because they are not using the process that we are using. We would use, what you call this, reasoning mind, or we will recollect. These are two things that we can know. Either we can recollect or we can logic. These are the two skills that educated people have. And children are definitely using a skill that is not this, because they do not know the rules of how to make sense, things like that. And I found that invariably all the children are able to do it. Which is one of the very important things which led me to look at, there are other cognitive tools that we have completely lost in this process of getting educated. So this was very clearly one of that. I sometimes do teacher workshops. So once in Hyderabad I was with about 80 teachers. So as I was going there, I found there were some people there, this ayahs, who were, for cleaning, and there were 3-4 drivers. I took all of them. And I repeated the same exercise there. And all 80 teachers could not make this color, but all the ayahs and all the drivers were able to mix and match this color. All the tests we do is to prove that we are better than them. I think we need to find, different kinds of tests. So we can only deal with what we know. That is how logic comes. The reasoning mind is a trap. That is actually because we have always been dealing with what is known. Whole schooling is about what is known. Am I right? They tell you the answer, they tell you the question. So what do you do then? You see? So the reasoning mind develops only because we are always dealing with what is known. And the whole classroom, in the whole 10-15 years, we have never encountered what is unknown. So, and this is exactly what is happening here. Teachers are not able to deal with what is known. Either they recollect, they don't know, they are not studying. So I give some of this. So this is a very amazing kind of a thing. Actually, children began to see so many colors that they have never seen. So this is actually a process where, see, it's actually absurd to sensitize children. When they are already sensitized, their senses are awake. It's only when you go to school you need to, detoxification is required only for that. Otherwise they are alive, their senses are awake. In fact, they are spiritual. Actually, that's what it is. They are born spiritual, they are born meditating. And we kill it off completely. So in this case, what I tried to do was, actually it was my learning. It was not actually children's learning. It was for me to recover my lost senses, sensibilities, that this, and children were actually a means for me to get that back. So you can see, 14-year-old girl doing, you can see one side is the original leaf, other side is the painting of that. Again, this kind of square is not NIT hangover. I mean, because there are so many things that you still can't, because those ghosts that are so deep. The damage is so total that otherwise why should one think of square, no? They're just leaves put together. And the sceneries? Just some dry leaves. So another thing again was actually what was pointing. All this was pointing to this idea that there is a biological basis for beauty. That we are born artists. We don't have to learn to be an artist. We are born with it. Because that is a biological capacity. And it is not really to do art, but just to live. That is why when a person carries weight, he goes with certain rhythm. Every act of life, you go to rural tribal area, don't attend a dance conference, just go to rural area and look at them. You'll find dance happening right there. Every act is rhythmic. And that is I think that is a fundamental rule for use for why beauty is there in our lives. Each sense will tell you, for example, taste. It tells you what to eat and what not to eat. Alright? But of course, educated don't believe the sense. You believe the doctor who will say, no, you are having fever, you should eat more and have this medicine. But your body is telling, no, you don't feel like eating. This very basic, this trust for ourselves is what education does to you. You don't trust yourself anymore. Some expert will tell you what to do and that's it. So these are, just few examples of work that children do. And this kind of beauty is possible in children. And what do they do in schools with children? Have you seen the drawings that children do in schools? Horrible. So this kind of class is what children are capable of. And we are just not able to understand that. And many things they did in that workshops, mud. Then I also, I'm drawing. It's a very, it's actually all this work that I do has to do with observation, awakening senses. That's all. So when I'm talking about drawing, it's about looking. They see. So everything they see and draw. Normally you ask a person to draw a leaf, one shape will come out. But actually when children begin to see, then there are several shades that are there. It's like color. Normally when I tell people to get 10 different shades of brown, people say no, it's not possible. So there will be one color, dry leaf, brown color, and green leaf is one. The variation that is there, it doesn't enter our mind because we have not seen it. It's only idea in our head that there is brown color there, which we don't see. Like I always say that educated, in the educated places you will find that if the door is low, it will be written, careful of your head. Right? Why do you need that? Because we are so dependent on reading. So these are, just then taking a leaf and reproducing that. This is from old magazines. So I do collect old magazines. If you have any colored magazine, please, you can give it to me sometime. So this is given to children and then they make, again they have no word for polite there, they just make things. I find that all these terms are an easy shortcut, not to see things. You say collage and then you say, you are defined and set aside. Actually, the modern minds use reasoning to reason away, not to understand. Because, actually 15 years of dealing with static knowledge, you can see how the brain is functioning. 15 years dealing with static knowledge. It cannot deal with uncertainty. So the immediate thing that it applies is, immediately a reason is used and just finish it off. I mean, I keep hearing that Rajasthan, that places, no, people use bright colors because the desert, there is no color there. It's just, for everything there is a reason and it's stopped there. I don't know, why can't people keep this thing open? And again, I was actually, in fact today we were talking about this whole issue of reasoning, that we try to understand everything through reasoning. And I find that, the best thing is not to reason, just leave it. An open mind, that is how it should be, just leave it. Things will happen on its own. So this is the kind of composition I am talking about, absolutely beautiful. Again, 13, 14-year-old girls with no training, no teachers, first time doing this. Clever, again looking at their village and creating this. So now, shall we start this? Completely done with this schooling. Actually, there is a term that we use that we learn from experience. Am I right? We learn from experience. But I find that children do not learn from experience, they learn the experience. That's the crucial difference to learning. Children learn the experience. So whatever the experience is what they learn. So then look at that place called school. What are they learning? They are learning the teacher. They are not learning what the teacher is telling. They are learning the teacher. They are learning authoritarianism. They are learning mediocrity because they never learn how to create knowledge. They learn because the teacher is there telling them. They learn to depend on knowledge because somebody is giving them all the time. But the whole experience of 15, 10 years, whatever number, is of an authority telling them and they hearing it. And then what children do is to learn the teacher. Because each teacher, the child has to know whether to escape the teacher or to, because your liking of a subject just depends on the teacher, nothing else. It has nothing to do with the subject per se. Then another biggest tragedy is that this whole fragmentation of knowledge into physics, chemistry, mathematics, art, science, all that, it's just confusing the child like anything. Because the world outside is holistic. It's not fragmented the way that we divide these things into. It's holistic. And the child is holistic. The child engages with the holistic world and makes sense of it. So let me just look at actually, I find that we are just being prepared for becoming good consumers and very good slaves, well paid, IIT meaning well paid, because I feel it's like, what software is loaded. Physics, PhD means physics software is loaded. Beyond that, nothing that person can understand. No ethics, that's it, no. So that, so this is what is really happening in schools, by software loading of physics, mathematics, chemistry, different subjects. And you can see that, like I say that, that if you want to make people, if you want to subjugate a group of people, make them believe they are free. And a good example of USA, United States of America. Subjugated thoroughly, but everybody is talking about freedom. Absolutely subjugated because there are absolutely no skills in that country. Hardly any skills. Primary skills. Looking after a child, I think that's the most primary skill. It's not there. They have to depend on a doctor or some, huge system there. No skills to cook. Hardly. And the biggest problem is that the very knowing process is transformed. They always have to look at somebody telling them what to do. Instructions have to be there, otherwise mobile cannot be used. You know? And of course there are other economic hurdles that are created, especially in the health sector, completely. I mean, I think, so this is actually what we also do to our schools. We are told we are educated, so we feel superior, and we are also told that we have a reasoning mind, and actually just try to analyze what exactly have we reasoned and done in our life. Absolutely nothing, hardly. But we believe that we have a reasoning mind. And of course you can see that what is really happening is a complete cultural destruction. Now, last 2 years ago I was in Srinagar. And I found Srinagar is the only city in this country which has a distinct architectural quality. The reason is that architects have not been allowed to function there. That's the reason. Yeah. It's just people's sensibilities that has, made them create what they, Look at all the other cities in India. All cities are alike. The architect which is learning the same subject all over, and the same, Frank Lloyd Wright, the same stuff all over. So how will they create diversity? Just 50 years ago we had diverse ways of doing things. Diverse architecture, diverse, everything was diverse. Today, the whole thing is getting homogenized. So I would like to relook at what is a child. Actually there are, for me also, I was lucky that I was able to adopt a child. She was 3 months old when she came to my life. And one decision I took was that I will not say no to her. No to her. And I will obey what she wants. When she says she doesn't want to eat, I respect that. When she says she doesn't want to sleep, I respect that. So it was a very clear kind of a relationship where I am not the authority. I would say that she is the authority because she knows what she wants, not me. So I created a situation like this to truly, and actually she was my guide. There are actually the 3 things that really helped me to learn. One was I completely stopped reading. Second one was the so-called illiterate. And the third was the newborn child. So this, you read this? Brian, go ahead.
You also want us to read.
So this senses are the key, and you find that children are all the time doing things. Especially, and I think in traditional systems there were things to help this happen. Like I was looking at architecture. Modern architecture is completely anti-child. The other day I was in a friend's house and I found that the whole place is marble, and this new ceramic tiles, it doesn't allow the child to crawl. One of the most important things the child should do is to crawl. But this new smooth spaces doesn't allow the child to crawl. I mean, I actually watched how the child was trying to crawl and just couldn't. It was so smooth. It's like the snake when we come in, can't no. And of course the 3 feet kitchen going up. That's again alienation. For 3 years, 3-4 years, child doesn't know what is happening in the kitchen. And modern kitchens are even more tragic because it's all sealed off, all cupboards closed. So you don't even know that there are things there, even to understand, to give that sense that. So knowing is an act of being in the world. So being is knowing. So you don't really have to make an attempt. I'll give you a very good example of these children in Bangalore slums. By the time they reach about 4 or 5 years can speak 4 languages, minimum, 4 languages. Now let us look at this as a cognitive space. I call cognitive space that allow learning. It includes your psychological framework also. It's not just the outer space, your inner space, all that is, the words that you use, the materials there, everything is cognitive space. cognitive space of Bangalore slum, what you find is that there is nobody teaching the children. It's a very crucial thing. There is no teaching happening, personal, individual. Everything is teaching actually. Every aspect is actually teaching, but no individual teaching the child to learn, read and write. Speaking. Second thing is that it is not, what do you call that? Made simple for him, for the child. So the child is facing the complexity as it is and simplifying it according to its own ability. So 3-year-old will understand in a certain manner, 4-year-old understand in a certain manner, but they are the ones who are deciding, how to understand that. Two. Second thing, there is no memorizing at all. Absolutely no memorizing. And in fact, memory is not needed at all in true learning processes. Do you think so? If you are interested in something, you don't memorize. You know it. You are there. You are fully involved. And most things that you have memorized or forgotten, am I right? All schooling is all gone. No? So what is that we have achieved after all this 10 years of mucking up? That's gone completely. Then, no testing. So that cognitive space tells you a different story, that how learning takes place. And there is no conscious analysis of grammar or anything like that. Children also learn grammar in a very natural manner. There is no, organizing of knowledge as we are doing for children. We organize it for them. So actually, this is all leading to, which is what I am talking about as biological process. That it is the biology that actually does the job. This organizing of knowledge. And also there is a term called self-organizing systems. There is a term. And exactly that is what we are doing. So we are not trying to understand, but understanding is taking place. And reasoning, this is what you do. You are actually shortcutting the true knowledge when you try to reason. It will happen automatically on its own when time comes. And that I think is one of the aspects of biological, the process of biology. Actually, I remember my father, the key is usually never not given to children. Somehow you fool the child by telling that crow, kaka is something that we use in Kerala, the crow has taken away. And I find that all the time, like this, she is attempting a photo with the I find that in rural areas, by the age of 3, children are independent. They eat their own food, and for 4 years, they can even 4-5 years, they can even start cooking and looking after their younger siblings. So this wanting to be independent is core to any human being. But somehow, this freedom is something that we don't, especially in urban areas, educated areas, we don't give children that. Every time, and where choice should not be given, there choice is given. Like food. You want this today, that today, hardly any choice, So that, where true choice is required, which is the freedom to explore, to be, there that is denied. So this is the, it's about observing, exploring, manipulating. This is what children do all the time. And in fact, actually most of the diseases that we talk about now, ADD, HDD, so many names, all these are caused because we are going against the nature of the child. And the education mafia is very thriving on it. So many different schools, special schools. So this was, one day I found this child, she was taking chappal from one corner and, going and leaving it there, coming back. And then I suddenly found her taking a newspaper, putting all the chappals together and carrying. The whole idea of planning, you see, now they have also this thing called value education in schools. Right? Value is something that you experience. it can't be intellectually understood, what is good and bad. You need to do it, taking care, how to take care. It's all these are physical experiences of the body. The body needs to understand how to take care. And natural learning process, what I call is that, I think it's the nature's way of knowing. And it's like a coconut tree. You've seen them how it bends and accesses sunlight. For accessing sunlight, it bends like this and accesses sunlight. So there is something that is guiding each life form to survive, to sustain. I think the fundamental thing is to stay alive, to continue life. And this biological necessity is what is the core of knowledge. That's what I think. I may be completely wrong. And this is why these senses are given. It guides you to eat the right food. All that actually. But this very basic stuff is completely kept aside, and we go into using wrong tools. A thing called education. Now, another thing I keep hearing from teachers is that, or modern pedagogists is that, children learn by imitation. They do imitate, but they also innovate. So this was a child she created on her own. Actually, children are innovating all the time. This is the truth. Provided that space is there, they are, especially in rural tribal areas, they are left free completely. There are no laws, so they are all the time innovating, doing things, understanding things, and that is what innovation is all about. Like looking at seeds, the color is explored. Different things are explored for making whistles. There is some other flower being used for making a whistle. This is what they do with that. The way I see it is like this, that the way children understood grammar, which is the structure of knowledge, I think science probably is the structure of life, which children understand by living it. And if you see, all these activities can be connected to whatever things that we have been learning. But now, which is so disconnected in our lives, we don't understand these things. But if you observe each and every act that the child is doing, and toys are completely misunderstood idea by adults. Children don't need toys at all. And whatever comes to their hand, that's a toy for them. And they're just exploring things. And when you buy and give toy to a child, you're only making the child learn to be a consumer. And you're actually confusing the child actually. Like 2-year-old child, when the child is given a doll, the child actually thinks that is a live thing. The child doesn't think that that's a doll. That's your mind, your idea. It's not the child who thinks that that's a doll. For the child, that's real. And then it wonders why it doesn't have life. It's not alive. These days you have the life size, same color kind of, confuse the child like anything. And children don't need at all choice. And all games that children play are what they see. Whatever the adults are doing in front of them, they play that. So you see that today when children come back from schools, they play teacher games. And playing is a way of learning. Now they have this, other thing, play method and all that, And it's not that. Play is learning. You can't teach physics through play. It doesn't happen like that. Just see the burst open. Now, see the decision that she has to take. So all this happens only in experience. And knowing is a gradual process, moving towards unknown. And education reverses this whole process that you are always dealing with known. And we move from religious superstition to scientific superstition.
That's a scientific statement.
What's that?
Child is born divine. To make it human by teaching.
Who are to make human?
Socrates.
Now what did you say? To make
Child is born divine. To make it human by teaching.
The master said, he doesn't even go to the ground. In the hand So all the skills of attention, patience. Do you get any of this from classroom? Tell me. Tell me which skill can you get from a classroom? Any of this that a person needs, the body needs? All the time all the time observing. Then making their first thought. Actually, risk taking is one of the most important things that children, in the act of knowing, which is there, which is completely absent. Not completely absent. You are afraid of the teacher, that I agree. But true learning, that integrated understanding of, is completely missing in the. Again, today actually we had this talk about yoga. I don't think children need extra yoga. They're already doing. In fact, I was telling her that in the rural areas, you will find people doing this. Am I right? When they wake up. But we don't see that at all in our modern spaces. Nobody does that. The spontaneous body movements that are actually probably the yogic things, which is what the body knows, not our mind. Our whole application is of the mind today. As the mind knows things. Actually, when I was showing the earlier ones, teachers used to complain there are no trees in the urban areas. So this is what I found in an urban area. Actually, again, this gender is constructed in modernity, gender divisions. If you go to rural areas, you'll find that both boys and girls play the same game till about 10, 12. There are no separate games. But you can see now in the West, the whole game is constructed, and this whole, then we complain that there is a gender division, systematically constructed, and then you say there is a crisis. Yeah. Look at that. She's also scratching. Sensitive teaching that just took place, Actually, I can go on and on. Maybe, because I have been documenting this. Maybe I'll just finish this. Cooking again. So learning various skills without any adults. See, what is important is no adult around at all in these spaces. They are children's spaces. No, what interested me was different ways they were making the molding, Initially with two things, now see the leaf that they used for this. That was a... And location is very important. Wherever they are, that is where learning is taking place, See this leg movement. That spontaneous movement of the leg. In fact, I was sharing this with some architecture teachers. They were telling, no, he must have learned it from somebody. I find the most difficult to talk to are architecture professors. The more design idea in their head, the less they are open to true understanding of how creativity actually takes place. Even the child, I had a tough time. So, every act, she's become expert in handling knife. Children know all the plants that are there, all the birds that come, all the fish in the river, all that they know. And I have seen this tragedy of introducing all, what is this? What education? Environmental education to children, with absolutely no idea of what is there. So children are actually, who knows these things, are put into classrooms to teach them these things. The bottle was interesting, the handle. was a meeting where another bus. This is where the tragedy lies, and how modern education shifted, from nature to human, from collective to the individual, from heart to intellect, intuition to reason, creativity to memory, experience to information, holistic, implicit to compartmental and explicit, and infinite to the limited. With our mind, we are just trying to understand the limited, and the whole potential is something else. And education is what really narrows you down to, so. Actually, this is over. I'll just show you one small thing on. I was just looking at this, how just one thing is repeated throughout, Like for example, see, children learn what they see. This is very clear. So, for example, think house. Two things they are interested. One is the inside, the parents, the teeth, all that is happening, marriage, all that they do. At that time, they are not interested in the form. They would just take a bed sheet, put it over a table, and then say their house. And they would, Otherwise, they are interested in the form. And they keep on constructing depending on their ability and the age. Look at that young age, how he is constructing a small house. The form is clear. And this is there, collaboration, cooperation, co-learning. Now this whole peer learning that you say it happens in school is completely nonsense. It doesn't happen at all. Because you actually be with your own age group. What could you learn? It's only in a multi-age group situation that true learning takes place, true transfer can take place. It cannot happen in the classroom at all. Now these situations are co-learning situations. Different age groups coming together, no hierarchy, no fights. And there are sometimes fights, but they sort it out themselves, They don't need an adult with a stick coming and telling, So this is this different group. And see, the complexity keeps increasing. Bigger knots, now they can stay inside. Here they are more interested in the, in the act of acting, in the relationship. Look at this house. I think he was around 12 years when he made this, 12, 13 years when he made this house. That same boy. And look at the interesting ways they are using, Somebody is climbing tree, other one is actually there is this ladder which is just used, held, so that he can climb back and do, So much innovation is happening. And for this you are giving that lousy thing called schools, completely jails where absolutely no creativity can ever happen. No independent mind can flower there. Actually this child right should be completely rewritten. Because it is an adult idea of child right. It is not the nature of the child. We should understand what is the nature of the child and rewrite what is that. I think your Gandhi in school could take it up, Seriously, because this is a notion that we impose, It's not the true calling of true biology of the child. And it completely distorts children. And imagine how many suicides are happening today. I mean, isn't this a problem of schooling? You completely, deny the true potential to grow, to flower. So I just wanted to show you this example of how So with each age, the complexity changes, then they, and different forms are created. Just some stones put together, houses form. Even it's a very small thing. It's the same thing with kitchen, sometimes real cooking happens, sometimes they just play with it, And local context, and this is the biggest problem of modern education, that we are completely out of context. You are anyway not dealing with presence at all. You see, actually, what we do in school is that the true content is absent of what you teach. Because word is not the knowledge. Word is an explanation of true knowledge. So we are always dealing with form, never with the content. And meanwhile, the children are learning the teacher, which is the content for them. And what really happens is that there is a cognitive split that happens. Because your biology, your being learns in one way, and slowly, by the time you reach 10, 12, you are confused, you begin to think that what you are learning is physics and chemistry and mathematics. They are just collection of words. But what you have acquired is this, whatever that schooling has given you. To be a slave mind, to depend on knowledge, to be a servant, precisely. So local context, this is another bamboo artisans community where I've seen this. Yeah, this is the chapel that they cut. And this kind of things are here in modernity. Children and dogs are not allowed, And you will never find this kind of things in rural areas. Well, see, this doesn't mean that we should imitate the rural. There are so many things, I can definitely tell you there is so much to learn from them, but that doesn't mean that, See, our educated mind has this problem of not keeping the doors open. Either it has to imitate the West or it will imitate the East. It has to imitate. The other mode, which is of an open mind, which is exploring, which doesn't know, feels open. That is, that is the problem that educated mind doesn't have. Actually, this is for this child, that is their children. So in this act, the child very clearly knows what it is dealing with. In fact, children trust you when you give a child, toy. In fact, the other day I was in somebody's house and there was a stuffed puppy, And the young child, 1.5 years, this father is telling, look, puppy. So what is the child learning? You're completely confusing the child. So that is all.
Thank you. Any questions? Would you like to?
Yeah. I mean, if people are interested, questions are welcome.
In these situations, you have to give them the tools and implements. Like for example, they were building with the sticks.
Yeah. No, nothing.
Okay.
They collect everything. They collect on their own. In fact, they take a lot of risk. This big knife, knife and all, they're not usually given that way.
Right.
Parents will, so they somehow find a way to go in and get it. So It's not that we provide for them. No.
But you have to tell them that they have to build the house. Or
No, absolutely nothing.
They
It
can
is
do
all
whatever.
from their own drive, from their own independent, this thing. So, some 100% children decide what they want to do. So there is no adult interference at all. See, this is a paradigm that modern minds will find it very difficult to understand, because we are in a paradigm of always control and telling child what to do and that kind of paradigm. Whereas in urban paradigm, see, children have never said no. See, there is so much anger in modern children here. That's because you're all the time telling no to the child. You always no. Whereas in tribal situations, children are never told no. They are never beaten. A very important point. And of course, there is no teaching. So this teaching paradigm is something that in the alternative schools where they have failed, they have not tried to understand the whole paradigm. So teacher has taken for granted that teacher is required, and now you see how learning takes place. It cannot happen. It simply cannot happen. Because teacher is the cause for damage. Teaching is the cause for damage.
I have one question. You see, then all this sort of belittles the fact that we are progressing from from knowledge. I mean, knowledge is progressive, and that each civilization progresses on the skills, experiences learned by the previous generation, and it's all cumulative. And I don't know whether we have reached where we want to reach, or whether we even plan to do that, but. There is some kind of handing down, some kind of, everything cannot happen only, some individuals might do some things better. So there is a process of creation of expertise. For instance, here, there might be some children who are better at music, some who are better at doing plastic art. So there might be some skills passed down, and the cumulative effect of all that is generation of some body of knowledge or expertise. To say that everything can be discovered by everyone in one generation, or, even trying to do it, while the process itself is great, it should be encouraged. I am totally convinced. But how do you explain this dichotomy?
See, what we should understand is that the people who study en masse, they create absolutely nothing. They are idiots right through, their death. People who create has absolutely nothing to do with school. If you look at any of the Nobel Prize winners, or anybody who is really doing stuff, it is not the result of school that they have created. It is their own learning, their own this thing, So, schooling, what I'm telling you, that's, one thing I want to make it clear, that I'm not against knowledge. What I'm against is that this is not working out. This is not working out. See, just look at, today I was reading a very interesting cartoon by R.K. Lakshman, an old cartoon, that something has been, created. And so the meeting is going on, so he's thanking all the foreign people who have come from Japan, from here or there, And then he's telling that he thanked all these people for creating a national stuff, You understand? Completely meaningless. We have come all the time dependent on somebody's knowledge. So there are several issues that we need to deal with, One is that, the issue I think is to become authentic, to be original. And I showed you children's work, absolutely beautiful work. If that is the capacity they have, then why don't we relook at the whole thing in that manner,
Process is what
the process. I'm not sure, but at least that is one thing that seems to say. Because schooling has really not created any brilliant minds, hardly, except Mr. Swaminathan. No, very few people, but somehow I think they have not been so much damaged by their schooling that they were able to find time and discover and, in spite of schooling.
Classic case of creativity being killed by schooling or teaching. Right in the beginning stage. And I had a demonstration of it. Great P.K. Srinivasan, the educator, the mathematics group, Ramanujan and all that. He conducted these experiments to teach, to interact with children. He went to one of the schools and got the LKG, UKG students there. He started talking to them. And every time he asked them a question, the student turned to the teacher. Don't look at her. You please go away. Let them answer with themselves, he said. And then one of the things was, he showed, after a lot of talk, how do you show one? Very timidly, one of them got up and showed one. Showed two. Okay, this has even a thread of thought, 2. Then how do you show 5? Promptly came the answer, 5. How do you show 5 in another way? There is a, people, they start looking at the teacher, look, teacher, please keep quiet. And then one the child, and then the take-off stage, from the other hand. This is the other way in which 5 can be shown. And that stage, because he was the one who taught me all this, how to recognize it. And then he said, how do you show 5 in a different third way? Now they were non-plus. So there were a lot of things. And then he said, what is this? Prompt gave the reply, 32. Because in the LKG, UKG, they were 3, 2, 32, 4, 2, 42. Like the Veda mantra. They don't know what it is.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, Jinan. Very illuminating again. So, from what I understand, we're losing a certain inherent sense of beauty through these forms of box living. And that sounds like a really fundamental form of violence, or one of the most fundamental forms of violence we can do to ourselves.
Yeah.
You know? So personally, I'm interested to know what are you doing, of course, about this. The work with Kumbh murals is there, but what I think, more, as far as I understand, more than the murals, this is a very important understanding for us to come to, that we are probably quite deeply damaged, and we need to reclaim or heal through that damage. So I'm curious to know what you're doing, because I'd love to know more of your work in terms of this.
See, there is the damage also there. See, for example, one very fundamental fact of a learner is humility. And education gives you pride instead, correct? And that kills the whole, seeker. Humility is what is required. But IIT and pride. Any college, forget about IIT, any college that gives you just the fact that you feel you're educated, you feel something, So, so at various levels we need to question this, that what is the true learner? Humility comes in, innocence for another matter, innocence comes in. So there are several such issues, and I think, if you are able to understand this thing, and at least for me, children can help us out. Hierarchy has to go. But today it is all based on hierarchy. We think we know, so we go to the rural area and help them out. We think we know, so we want to teach our children. So the moment the hierarchy goes, then you are a learner throughout. It's a hierarchy that power. Another thing is power. The true learner is powerless. So these are the qualities that we need to cultivate. I don't know whether it is possible. Because it's also, see, I was again looking at this whole crisis of modernity is a cognitive crisis, is what I feel. Crisis in cognition. And because the being already knows, the very attempt to know is what is creating the problem. See, today, if you see, we can call ourselves as human knowings. We are not human beings. We are human knowings. We know, but we cannot be. A good example is that if you go around and look at people who are actually responding to the crisis of the earth, most of them are people who have now been to school. Like who are planting trees, so many of them. But what I call us as the textualized community. Textualized, because we know the world through text. We don't know the real world. We know the world through text. So we belong to a textual world. And even our crisis response is in the textual world. So we would create fantastic movies. We will have an art exhibition for children. All kinds of things, except planting trees, we will do everything else. So, so it's we know, but we can't be. That beingness, the crisis is in beingness. Whereas, like for example, all those people that were in Spokane, that lady in Bangalore, nobody has ever attempted any activist meet on environmental issues. They're just doing it. So somewhere I think they are very much connected to nature. They are nature. So the pains of nature, they know. They don't have to, go to school to understand that. You know that so many people, Sakleja, they never been to school. There are so many people all over like that who are responding to this crisis without taking part in any meetings, anything, but just doing it. So I think so there are this kind of deep disconnections that modernity has done. And I think at this point, I think those are more important than so-called development. Because I think we are developing ourselves to death. It's a very suicidal process that, very, very clear. Within few years, everything is getting neutered. So I think knowledge probably is there, but there's no wisdom. Maybe one friend used to share with me that, if Einstein was born centuries ago in an Indian culture, probably he wouldn't have talked about this. It's not important to say what you know. It was so destructive that it created atom bomb. Certain knowledge probably is good to hide. I don't know. So there is actually a crisis. For example, when you're doing, then it is your ego who is doing. It's again a crisis. And another day, one of my friends was saying that actually, in fact, I also feel that we are actually fighting a completely lost battle. Completely lost battle, because the environment. You can see biotechnology is going to come in. Jinan Ramesh has told us, but the other two ministers will ensure that it will come back. So we are just, there's no point. Of course there is point in fighting, but understand that we are fighting a completely lost battle. And this friend was telling me that this is like a Zen koan. When a disciple goes to a Zen master, he is given a koan to break his logic. Today the humanity is in logical mind. And the whole humanity is given a crisis situation to get out of logic. And that's what you are thinking, because we are up against, we are driven against helplessness. Am I right? We are completely helpless. The kind of mind control that is happening, everywhere. They are also not villains. I don't think the people who are propagating biotechnology, the people who are rich, they are not villains. They are all part of this whole drama that is happening. And I think, I don't know, this is what I suppose we are driven to act, not from our ego, and I think that will be fine, but I don't know whether, that kind of thing can happen, I don't know.
Your theory of memory was physically interesting. You made the statement that memory is not in the child, it is not memorizing. One way. Then they later learn to memorize and learn grammar and things like that.
Yeah.
Now, actual experience, what we have seen is number of things which we have learned, which have been told.
Yeah.
For instance, at the age of 3, I was given Adi Suri and some of the shlokas and all that by my mother and father by word of mouth.
Yeah.
I was not memorizing them.
Yeah.
But is it something like they go and embed themselves in some stream form in a hardware type of way, which makes meaning. Later also, when in the 5th standard, when I studied all the Judic, I knew the meaning and then I learned it. Later things which I have, many other things in mathematics I have studied, I have forgotten. Geography I have forgotten. I could memorize it even with effort. Whereas this is without effort, the childhood thing. Is it a different process? It's almost a genetic process or what?
No, I don't know that. But one thing related thing that I would like to share is that one friend I recently met in Bombay, he was telling me that in the traditional Vedic systems, like Ayurveda for example, or any such thing, and when you memorize slogas, you are not supposed to intellectualize it. Correct. You are just memorizing it, leave it there. And when actual activity takes place, that is when recollection happens and correction happens. So it's a completely different thing that we have not understood this, Memory is there, but it is not misused in the intellectualization process, because intellectualization doesn't understand anything. It doesn't make you understand anything. I have a very good example, that when we traveled from Kanyakumari to Delhi, you are imagining that, I'm from Kanyakumari from Delhi to Kanyakumari. When I told this, we are all thinking that we are going up and coming down, no? Correct? Going to Delhi as we have gone up, and from Delhi to Kanyakumari we have come down. No, that is an absurd experience that we have created in our mind. It is not there. But schools have given you this idea that
because map is straight.
Yeah. So that is exactly. So the whole cognitive space of school is completely confusing you with several. So we are actually making mental images of knowledge. That's not true knowledge at all. True knowledge can only happen when you experience it. So this was a very interesting connection that he gave me about how in traditional societies how this memory, it was rumored but never intellectualized and try to understand. Another very good example, actually now whatever I have been telling, if you go into various sites of West. For example, studies on cognition, all that is being proved. Biology of knowledge, biology of cognition, biology of beauty. Again, there are at least 3-4 universities in the West who are learning this. So these are not something that are not proved also. You can even look at it and understand. Studies on brain. But the tragedy that has happened, I would say, in the Western knowledge system is that the interest in children did not happen either in education department nor in psychology department, not in psychology. It happened in technology departments. So that shows how much you are interested in your child. But they were interested in trying to understand how learning actually takes place, not how to condition the child. That is what they were trying to understand in psychology and education departments. But when they wanted to create artificial intelligence, the only choice they had was to study a child. Yeah, that is the only learning thing that is around, So all these discoveries you can actually, if you go into various cognitive science departments in various things. But of course the educationists and the psychologists are completely misusing it. See, the problem with Western knowledge system is that it is completely fragmented. You understand? Unless you have a holistic mind, you will not know how to put various pieces together to understand it. And also the problem with Western knowledge system is that it always wants to apply what is known. You understand? And this is the biggest problem. That Montessori has discovered something, so you want to apply it. I had a workshop here with Montessorians here, the school here, and after they had actually gone through the whole course and it was towards the end. And I did a one-day workshop, and after the workshop they told me that today they have understood what sense is all about. But they have never experienced their sense, no? They only reading what Montessori talked about sense.
The superstitions that the tribal people are given, we have to leave them because we have been those are
No, I don't know. I think many of the superstitions are probably right. We don't know actually. Many of our own superstitions are there, even today. Like polio is good for your health, it will help you. Polio injection. I mean, they are all feeding you with so many superstitions, Microwave is good for your health, you may use it. I mean, so many people are using microwave, right? Systematically.
They are tested.
Pardon?
I think they are tested and then.
They are tested? No, please try to, don't read the mainstream news about polio. Go deep inside, you will find what's wrong. You will find what is wrong with allopathy. In 1920s, Dr. Baines found out that specs is not required for eye problem. But his study was, not allowed to come out because the frame makers wanted to sell it. See, superstition is created here every day. Your newspapers are creating superstition every day.
This is another superstition that has been tested. It will take 10-15 generations to test it.
And with polio there are ample evidences that, like this, they just try to create another fear with this new TB, that new thing, swine flu and all that. The whole idea is to sell as many medicines as possible and you consume it.
Okay.
See, we need to understand this from a very nature's point of view. There are people experimenting on natural healing, natural farming, and of course this whole issue of natural learning. So this what the mainstream is showing you is not the real thing. You need to get out of that and okay.
Thank you.
It was so nice for me, especially to hear this, because I've stayed for about 16 years in ships, and I think whatever he said is absolutely true. Even in my case, we were in the Navy, and immediately after World War II, strict instructions were given as to how to stow the warhead of a torpedo to be safe. The Admiralty gave out the instruction saying, for safe storing, the warhead should be put upside down. But one admiral thought that this was not enough. So he sent another message saying, which means top to the bottom and bottom at the top. But the third editor was not convinced. He says to avoid any confusion, all bottoms are marked the top. The rest of the title instruction. So this again shows how too much of learning can take us to. In a picture called Can many years before, a bartender father was teaching his son of a cocktail that he was famous for in Paris. So he had 4 concoctions there, and he was telling his son, who was a science graduate, make this cocktail of mine. You must take a third of this, the third of that, the third of that, and final third of that, he said. The son said, stop. There are only 3 1/3 in a whole, he said. Then the father told him, don't be stupid, it all depends on how big an 1/3 you take. After all, the schools left us with the same oft-repeated joke that a man who was seeing AC circles went to the eye doctor and asked him to do something about it. So he tested him, dilated his eye, asked him to come after a week, tested him again, and gave him a beautiful pair of spectacles. Later he asked him, how is it? He said, I can see all those AC circles very clearly. That's what our education. On behalf of the foundation here, I thank Jinan for such an enlightening lecture. In fact, I was at this age and thrilled about it. Thank you.
So actually, we should come together and do something about it. Form a small group, or I don't know. Because see, there is no fundamental research happening in this country on children. And I think that is a very important thing that, and I've been trying, telling NIT and different people to do that. But, and I think people should, and it's about people's knowledge. People should come together and, try to create something. Sorry, I'll keep going.
இது வந்து ஒரு highly provoking lecture. கடைசியா ஒன்று சொல்லணும். ஏன்னா நான் ரொம்ப பழங்காலத்து ஃப்ரெண்டு, அண்ட் ஓல்டு ஃப்ரெண்ட் வாஸ் பிகம் ஓல்டர். காந்தியனுடைய ட்ரூப் எல்லாரும் சொன்னாங்க சம்பூக்கி பராத்துமாங்க. யாரோ இருப்பாங்க. காந்திக்கா போனோம்னா ஒரு ஆயுர்வேத ஒரு ஆள் இருப்பார், ஒரு அது மாதிரி எங்க ரூம் வந்து ஐஐடியில ஒரு சம்பூக்கி பராத். இத ஒரு புத்த பிட்சு ஒருத்தர் இருந்தார், ரொம்ப நாளா என் ரூம்ல தான் இருந்தார், ரொம்ப வருஷமா இருந்தார். அவர் ஜீனன் வருவார், அவர் ஒரு 2-3 நாள் இருப்பார். இந்த மாதிரி எல்லாருக்கும் இதுல வந்து என்னன்னா, you get exposed to lot of people. Fortunately, that room where I was, it was like a learning place. The entire IIT was a closed place. இது வந்து ஜீனன் சொன்னதுல 1-2 பாயிண்ட். நான் ரொம்ப புத்திசாலின்னு எப்ப நினைச்சேன்னா, படிக்கிறத நிறுத்தினதுக்கு அப்புறமா புத்திசாலின்னு நான் நினைச்சேன். 2வது விஷயம், நான் யாரையுமே கோட் பண்றது கிடையாது. எந்த லெக்சரா இருந்தாலும் எங்க போனாலும் இன்னொருத்த சொன்ன எனக்கு பிடிச்சதுன்னா நான் என்னோட தானே ஒரு ஐடியா. ஒண்ணு முக்கியமானது என்னன்னா, ஒரு ஃப்ரீடம் டு திங்க், ஃப்ரீடம் டு கொஸ்டின், கம் டு யுவர் ஓன் கன்க்ளூஷன் அண்ட் சஃபர் ஃபார் த கன்க்ளூஷன். இதுல வந்து ஒன்றும் இது கிடையாது. ஃபைனலி ஐ ஹவ் அரைவ்டு சொல்றதுக்கான விஷயம் லைஃப் முழுக்க கிடையாது. இவர் வந்து இந்த குழந்தைகள் வந்து குழந்தைகள் மாதிரி லைஃப் முழுக்கவே குழந்தைகளாக இருக்க முடியும்ங்கிறத எஸ்டாப்ளிஷ் பண்றார். ரொம்ப தேங்க்ஸ். அடுத்த மாசம் நம்ம ஃப்ரெண்ட்ஸ் கிட்ட கூட நான் ஷேர் பண்ணிக்கல, we are going to have a meeting. நம்ம ப்ரொஃபசர் பாலுசாமி will be talking about the great penance. ஒரு உண்மையாக மகாபலிபுரத்தில் இருக்கக்கூடிய அந்த அர்ஜுனன் தபஸ்னு சொல்லக்கூடியத ரொம்ப 4 வருஷம் அதை நன்னா படிச்சு எங்களுக்கெல்லாம் ஒரு ஆப்பர்ச்சுனிட்டி இருந்தது. இந்த இதுல மாமல்லை சைட் செமினார்ல he will be giving the talk next month, 3ஆம் தேதி ஏப்ரல் மாசம். நானே இது சொன்னாலும் நம்ப வேண்டாங்கிறேன். கடைசியில் ஒரு அனௌன்ஸ்மெண்ட் சொல்றீங்களா?
So far collected and so far spent. So far collected 89,000.
முதல்ல கொஞ்சம் பப்ளிக்கா சொல்லுங்க என்ன பண்ணோம்.
இந்த தமிழ் ஹெரிடேஜ் குரூப் சார்பா இந்த வினோபகால் மாதம் மீட்டிங் நடக்கிற இடம், இதை ரெனோவேட் பண்ணியிருக்கோம். ரெனோவேட் பண்றதுக்காக சில கான்ட்ரிபியூஷன்ஸ் வாங்கியிருக்கோம். அது இது வரைக்கும் கலெக்ட் ஆனது 89,000 இன் கேஷ். கைண்டா வந்தது வந்து மேல சீலிங் ரொம்ப லீக்கேஜ் இருந்தது. அந்த லீக்கேஜை அவர் சுந்தர் சார் அவரே வந்து போட்டு கொடுத்துட்டாங்க. சோஃபா ஸ்பெண்ட் வந்து 58,669. இன்னும் முடிக்க வேண்டிய வேலை இந்த இது கண்டிஷன் நாட் இயர்.
பாலாஜி வந்து டேக்கன் தி ரெஸ்பான்சிபிலிட்டி. அவர் வந்து இந்த பார்த்து ஸ்டடி பண்ணி ஏர் கண்டிஷனிங் இண்டஸ்ட்ரியில், அதனால அவர் பண்ணி எல்லாம் பார்த்து பண்றேன்னு சொல்லிட்டேன். நெக்ஸ்ட் டைம் அடுத்த மீட்டிங் வரும்போது நிச்சயமா கொசுப்படி இல்லாம ஒரு கம்ஃபர்டபுளா ஒரு இடத்துல இருக்க போறோங்கிறத நினைச்சால ரொம்ப சந்தோஷமா இருக்கு.
Request of Jinan, I just want to announce to everybody here, tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock in my house there is an interaction session with Jinan. That's right in my house. I have sent mails to many, but some of you may not have received it because you may not be in my mailing list. Such of those who are interested, you can take the address and details from tomorrow morning 10 a.m. It might last for about an hour and a half or so.